Okay. So, hello everyone, good evening. So, today we are going to have the Hindu newspaper analysis dated 11th of October 2022. So, today we are going to look into those important articles that were there in the newspaper. Okay. So, we are going to understand the articles that we are going to take into consideration for discussion, and after then we are going to discuss these articles one by one. Okay. So, these are the listed articles that we are going to take for discussion today. The first article is about Russia's continued defiance of international law. Okay. So, this article is essentially related to the international relations. Okay. It is important under GS paper 2, and in this article we will understand about the conflict that Russia and Ukraine are having, and we are going to understand about those international laws that are being defied, that are being not adhered to by Russian government. Okay. So, we are going to understand about those international norms, those international laws that are being violated by Russia. Okay. And we are going to understand why it is in violation with the international law. Okay. After this, we are going to take into account the second topic. It says still no relief for the malnourished. Okay. So, in this article we will understand about the status of health, okay, of the children and women in India. Okay. And specifically we are going to talk about a state, Madhya Pradesh, and we are going to talk about why Madhya Pradesh was in news, right, why it was in news related to malnourishment. Okay. Malnourishment means it is a state of health where children are not getting adequate nutrition. Okay. When children or school going students do not get adequate nutrition, it hampers their proper growth. Okay. So, we are going to understand about this thing. So, this topic is related to health and society. It is important under GS paper 1 and GS paper 3 of the mains exam. After this, we are going to look into another topic. It says address stigma in mental health, says Lancet Commission. Okay. So, we are going to understand about mental health. Okay. So, when we talk about mental health, we are essentially talking about those people who are facing difficulty, I mean mentally, means we have physical problems in our health time and again, and at the same time there are some people who are challenged mentally, who may be having some mental issues, but those mental issues are medical conditions, but these medical conditions are not considered only medical conditions, there are associated stigma as well, means people face it very difficult to come to the normal public. I mean if I am facing mental health issue, so I face very difficult, it is very difficult for me to talk about it. Why? Because some stigma is associated with it. People see people with mental problems differently. All right. So, we are going to talk about how we can address the stigma associated with mental health. Okay. This topic is again important under health section of GS paper 3. Okay. Then the next topic is related to FedEx chair Ben Bernanke shares Nobel with two other US economists. Okay. So, in this article we are going to discuss about Nobel Prize in economics. Okay. And we are going to talk about Nobel Prize in economics is not actually a Nobel Prize. Okay. And then we will talk about in what areas these people have received Nobel Prize. Okay. So, you might have heard that Nobel Prize is given individually to a person during their lifetime, or it can be given after a person dies as well, and it can be given in jointly as well, means jointly means more than one person can share the Nobel Prize, right. So, we are going to talk about Nobel Prize in economics, and we are going to talk about in what area it has been awarded. After then we are going to talk about one specific sector of Indian economy, it is known as space economy. Okay. Space economy may touch $13 billion by 2025. So, in this article we are going to talk about the growth prospect of Indian economy. All right. So, with this let us take the discussion of the first article. In this article we will discuss about international relations and international laws that are being violated, that are being defied by Russia. Okay. All of us know that Russia and Ukraine are having conflicts, right, over territorial sovereignty, right, and Russia is in a position of aggression, means it is aggressing over Ukraine, right, related to multiple matters. But like when it comes to international law has established norms, like these are established rules, right? And under international law, people see like which country is in violation of some of the norms, you know, under international law. So in this article, we will talk about some prominent institutions, we will talk about some prominent laws that are in place, and we will understand about which laws are being violated by Russian government, okay. So this article is going to be very in depth, and we are going to understand about, you know, some minute provisions in international law. First of all, we need to understand, like, you know, like we do have international law, and international law is, you know, a set of norms, rules and regulations. There are multiple international law in place, but majority of the international law do not have a mechanism to enforce them. International law are majorly binding in nature, okay, but the thing is we do not have a established thing to enforce the international law which is in place. So we will talk about this thing. So recently what has happened, like, you know, Russian government, they have taken into control 4 specific regions of Ukraine. These regions were earlier under the control of Ukraine, but Russian government has taken, you know, control over those regions. And we will talk about, like, you know, in this particular occupation, in this particular control, right, what laws are being violated by Russia, right? And we will understand about, like, what are the perspectives, like, you know, what was the point that was set by Russia while taking control of these you know, regions, okay. Apart from this, let us talk about, you know, some of the international institutions that are in place. We know United Nations organization, right? United Nations organization is a international, international organization. It has around 193 member countries. It has, you know, multiple organs under it, right? We have United Nations General Assembly, we have United Nations Security Council, right? So, like, you know, some of the declarations, okay, so United Nations General Assembly, they can talk about, they can deliberate upon, you know, certain important issues that are in place, but the thing is when it comes to security enforcement measures, it goes to the United Nations Security Council. So United Nations Security Council is a body within the United Nations organization framework, right? So under the United Nations Security Council, we have 15 members, right? And 5 of these members are permanent members of the United Nations organization. Another 10 members are non-permanent members, right? So the permanent members of the United Nations Security Council has veto power. Veto power means if a decision is being taken there, if one of the member is not voting in favor of it, if one of the member is against it, that particular decision will not be taken at all. Means like that particular decision will be considered nullified, okay. So that's the importance of, you know, being a permanent member under the United Nations Security Council. So when we talk about UNSC, United Nations Security Council, Russia is also a member. All right, Russia is also a member of United Nations Security Council. So despite deliberations, despite discussions happening in the United Nations, General Assembly against Russia, but a definitive, step is not being taken by the United Nations organization together, because Russia is also a member of the Security Council, which vetoes, any decision that comes, there for consideration. So this is one part, okay. United Nations organization being a very, important organization is not able to take action. Why? Because Russia itself is a permanent member of the UNSC. Apart from this, the resolutions that are taken by the United Nations General Assembly, UNGA means United Nations General Assembly. All the resolutions that are taken by the United Nations General Assembly are non-binding in nature. But at the same time, the decisions that are taken by the International Court of Justice, okay, we have ICJ, it is known as International Court of Justice. The International Court of Justice takes decisions that are binding in nature. Means like if, let's say any matter comes up in front of the International Court of Justice, it can take decision, these decisions are binding. But like when it comes to enforcement of those decisions, we do not have a mechanism to enforce those decisions. Are you getting my point? Means for example, like in India, right, we have Supreme Court of India, we have high courts, we have lower level courts as well. But if a court takes a decision in India, like we do have mechanism to enforce the decisions. Why? Because we have police, we can take someone into custody, and we can enforce the decisions of the courts of law in India. But like when we talk about this court, the decision taken by this court are binding, but the thing is enforcement mechanism is missing. You're getting my point? So International Court of Justice, right, ICJ, it has taken decision against Russia in this particular Russia-Ukraine conflict. But the thing is those decisions are not adhered by Russia. Means Russia is not adhering to the compliance, it is not complying to the decisions of the ICJ, right. So this is one part. So have we understood about International Court of Justice? Like if we talk about India, India has a Constitution of India. Similarly, if we talk about the United Nations General Assembly, right, United Nations, if we talk about United Nations Organization, UNO, right, United Nations Organization has a constituting document which is known as UN Charter, okay. It is known as UN Charter, and under the UN Charter we have different articles that are mentioned, okay, under the UN Charter. These articles talk about rights of those countries that are member of the United Nations Organization. It talks about rights, obligations, responsibilities of these countries, right. So United Nations Organization talk about the UN Charter talk about multiple rights. It talks about rights of the of countries for self-defense, okay. They have right of self-defense, they have right of self-determination, right. These countries have right of self-defense and right of self-determination. But the thing is we will talk about multiple things in this article, and here when we talk about the crimes that are happening, means like Russia-Ukraine war is happening. So during the war situation, war crimes happen. War crimes means for war also there are international laws that are in place. Like during a war situation, these countries have to adhere to those provisions in the law. But one of the country may not adhere to it. So when a country is not adhering to the provisions of the war, so it is actually violating the provisions of international law, okay. That is known as war crimes, okay. Then war crimes come under the international humanitarian law. Humanitarian law means the law that is in place, that becomes effective during war zone, okay, in the war zone, okay. So for this there are conventions that are in place, right. Apart from this, the country, means if we talk about Ukraine, Ukraine has moved, means it has gone to different organizations. For example, it has gone to the International Court of Justice, it has gone to International Criminal Court, it has gone to the European Court of Human Rights, okay, to put Russia under pressure. But still Russia is, still Russia is going ahead with this aggressive measures, all right. So if we talk about, here we are going to talk about some other provision. So if we talk about this particular thing, Russia being a country, right, it is a nuclear capable country, and at the same time Ukraine is also a nuclear capable country, means these two are nuclear powers. Russia and Ukraine are nuclear powers, and these two countries have not signed the non-proliferation treaty, okay, treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons, we simply say NPT, okay, non-proliferation treaty. So neither Russia nor Ukraine has signed the nuclear non-proliferation treaty. It means they are not binding, they are not clauses of the non-proliferation treaty, clauses of nuclear non-proliferation treaty is not binding on Russia or Ukraine. It means Russia can use the nuclear weapon whenever it wants, right, it can. But the thing is if we talk about the Charter of the United Nations Organization, the Charter of the United Nations Organization says that every country has the right of self-defense. It has a right of self-defense and collective self-defense. And at the same time, for example, if a country is attacked by a foreign power, so it can defend itself, it can defend collectively against the common enemy, right. in that perspective, the UN Charter like also talks about that, like if there is an attack on you or a threat of attack on you, means like someone has attacked, in that case you can have self defense and you can retaliate. You can like use force in retaliation. You can use collective force in retaliation whenever an attack happens on you. But like in case a threat of attack is also given to you, in that case also you can retaliate, means like you can, I mean like go for collective self defense, right. Here what is happening, the Russian government is using the force, it is using force against Ukraine, but the thing is it is saying like we are doing it for self defense. The thing is like Ukraine has not done any aggressive activity against Russia, but whenever Russia wants to go for any kind of attack, it says we are doing it for self defense, self determination, etc. Okay. And Russia has created a hypothetical what we say hypothetical like thesis that like we want to make Russia great again. Great how? Means like they want to unite Russia and they want to bring the age old Russia, which was very big. Very big means like you might have heard about disintegration, right, of USSR, right. So before disintegration, so USSR used to be a very big, I mean like very big territorial entity. But after disintegration, many countries came out of it, including Ukraine. Okay, Ukraine also came out of that USSR. Now Russian government wants to make it big, as historical one. Okay. In that perspective, it is trying to unite Russia. Okay. But like if we talk about today's world, the today's world is divided into different countries, and these countries are sovereign. Okay. All these countries are sovereign. Sovereign means these countries are able to decide their own law domestically, and at the same time they are free to come in international relation. They are free to sign charters, right, outside their country without any pressure, right. But in this case, what is happening, like there are 4 regions. What are those regions? One of the region is known as Donetsk, then we have Luhansk, then we have Zaporizhia, then we have another region which is known as Kherson. Okay. These are the 4 regions. These regions have been annexed. Annexed means these regions have been taken control of by Russian government. Okay. Annexation means adding territory into your own territory. For example, earlier I had this much territory with me. If I add this much more territory in the region, so like I'll be a bigger entity like that. Okay. So Russia has annexed these 4 regions, and before annexation, okay, before annexation, Russia said like Russia said like we have conducted a referendum. Okay. We have conducted a referendum. What do we mean by referendum? Referendum is a political exercise where voting happens, right. Voting happens like to know about the will of the people, right. So Russia says that we have conducted voting exercise in this particular area, and we have asked the wishes of the people whether they want to join Russia or not. And Russia says like we have conducted it and people want to join Russia, that's why we have annexed these territories. They say like we have not annexed, that's why we have unified these territories into Russia. You are getting my point? So this is what is happening. But the thing is like if we talk about Secretary General of the United Nations Organization, his name is Mr. Antonio Guterres. Okay. So United Nations Secretary General has said that like those areas, those regions where referendum was conducted, those regions were all already part of Russia, and like people of these regions, like people of various regions have the right of self determination. So let me talk about it little bit. So what do we mean by right of self determination, right? So the thing is like there is a convention, there is a international convention which is known as Montevideo Convention. Under Montevideo Convention, it talks about what are sovereign states, what are like countries, sovereign state, it talks about, right. So a sovereign place, a sovereign state must have a defined geographical territory. Apart from this, it should have a sizable population. Apart from this, it should have an established government. Okay. If these conditions, okay, the 4th condition is it should be able to come in foreign relation. It should be able to sign contracts, treaties with other countries. Okay? If these 4 conditions are met, then the country will be considered as sovereign. It will be considered as, you are getting my point. So, these are the things, and this this particular right of self-determination is also given under Article 1 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and then we have International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. Okay? These are some of the international provisions where right of self-determination is mentioned, okay, where right of self-determination is mentioned. Okay? And if we talk about Article 2 of the UN Charter, okay, it lists the principle of non-intervention as one of the 7 core principles of United Nations. Now let us understand principle of non-intervention. Non-intervention means like you are not aggressive on other countries, you are not doing intervention, and it talks about 7 such principles. One of the principle is principle of non-intervention. It is mentioned in Article 2 of the UN Charter. But Russian government, Russian government does not talk about Article 2, it talks about Article 1, that like this is the right of, we have the right of self-determination. But you have the right of self-determination provided that like you are not violating the provision of Article 2 of the UN Charter. Okay? So, these are the things. Are you getting about the discussion? And apart from this, like if we talk about rules on occupation, rules on occupation, under international law there are multiple rules under which like you can have control over a territory. You can have control over a territory. So, under international law, Russia's control over the 4 Ukrainian regions before the so called referendum is known as belligerent occupation. So, we will understand what do we mean by belligerent occupation, right. Belligerent occupation means like being a foreign power, you are a foreign power, you have taken control of some territory, you have taken control of some territory, now you have established authority over this territory. But establishing authority by taking control of the territory does not give you legitimate power, does not give you legitimate rights to claim that it is a sovereign territory of your country. It gives you the authority to take control of the thing, but the thing is it does not give you the right to claim this territory, this area to be sovereign, because those people have been taken control of, right, without their will. You are getting my point? So, belligerent occupation means like you are having authority, okay. You are having your established authority there, but like you cannot claim sovereignty in these areas, right. So, now like I will talk about one thing, means like Russia is in violation of multiple international laws, okay. So, one of the there is a convention, it is known as Hague Convention of 1899, okay, and it was the first treaty that laid down the laws of war, right. If you read international law, you will understand about like what are different laws of war. Earlier, people used to claim sovereignty over an area up to which they can launch missiles, okay. Means like let's consider this is my territory, and then like if I want to claim sovereignty over some, let's say, sea or other territory, I used to launch some kind of missiles. The longest the missile goes, that will be my territory, like that. But now slowly gradually the people have created laws for themselves. So, one of the law is known as Hague Convention of 1899, okay, Hague Convention. It has laid down laws of war, but like one of the important thing is the Hague Convention was was spearheaded, it was presided over, right. It was presided over, these conventions were presided over by the Russian Tsar Nicholas II. Means like Russian Tsar means like long back, one of the ruler of Russia, they have convened meetings, they have convened conventions, like they have convened meetings where they have come up with laws of war. But at present Russia, they are violating those laws. You are getting my point? Means laws were established by some power that was established in Russia long back, and these laws are being violated now by the present government of Russia, and they are not talking about these laws now. So have we understood about the war that is happening between Russia and Ukraine, and and so now let us talk about the nuclear bluff. Okay, means like Russia is attacking Ukraine through multiple ways, multiple means, and why other countries are not intervening, why they are not coming. Because Russia is threatening that if anyone enters into this particular thing, we are going to use nuclear weapon, right? So we will launch nuclear weapon. But the thing is, launching nuclear weapon, using nuclear weapon, right, will harm the other countries. So they are not entering into the war arena, right? But the thing is, use of force or threat of force. Threat of force means Russia has already given threat. What? It has given threat that if anyone enters, we will use the thing. Threat of force is also a provision that is mentioned under UN Charter. Under UN Charter, it is mentioned that every country has the right of self-defense. They have right of self-defense and collective self-defense. If a foreign power is attacking on you, you have the right to defend yourself, and you have the right to defend yourself collectively by taking help of other countries. And it also mentions if there is any threat of attack on you, still you have right of self-defense, right? You have right of collective self-defense as well. Okay. So here Russia has already threatened many other countries, but none of them are coming forward. Why? Because Russia itself is a member of the United Nations Security Council, having the veto power, right? So this is the thing. Now, so we have understood about self-defense and collective self-defense, all right? We have understood. And I have already talked about that neither Russia nor Ukraine has signed the Treaty on Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, which is known as Non-Proliferation Treaty, Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, okay? So this is the thing. So at this point of time, the world is in chaos, right? People are not sure what to do, what not to do, but Russia is going ahead with these aggressive measures, okay? So this is the thing. So with this, now let us take another topic, okay? With this, we will move to the next topic. Let's understand this topic. So this topic is related to malnourishment. Malnourishment means it is a status of, it is a state of health where children are not properly nourished, okay? They are not properly nourished. So their health and well-being will be affected at a later date, okay? So still no relief for the malnourishment. So what has happened recently, one of the state in India, Madhya Pradesh, the central state in India, Madhya Pradesh, okay? So in Madhya Pradesh, right, the Madhya Pradesh Accountant General, they have released a report, and in that report they have highlighted that there were corruption activities in in some midday meal scheme, and one of the scheme that is take home ration related scheme, okay? What kind of, what kind of misappropriation or fraud has happened? So the Accountant General of Madhya Pradesh, they have mentioned, he has mentioned that large scale fraud or misappropriation etc. in the identification of beneficiaries, production, transportation, distribution and quality control of the take home ration has happened in Madhya Pradesh. Means it is a report from a established authority in Madhya Pradesh that has talked about the step of Madhya Pradesh government where gross violation, huge fraud has happened on take home ration. And Madhya Pradesh is one of the state in India that has one of the highest prevalence of malnourishment, okay? So that's why Madhya Pradesh government is under some kind of what we say, some kind of pressure, right, to come up clean out of it. So Madhya Pradesh government is doing one or other thing, and at the same time what opposition parties are doing, opposition parties are coming heavy handed and they are blaming the Madhya Pradesh government of colluding. Colluding means participating in corruption activities with the officials and all at all levels, okay? So recently what has happened, you might be knowing that recently we have transported some like cheetah, okay, cheetah means it's one of the variety of, you know, tiger kind of thing. So we have transported cheetah from Namibia. Namibia is a country in Africa, okay, Africa is a continent having around 51 countries. So we have transported cheetah from Namibia to Kuno National Park. So Kuno National Park is a national park located in Madhya Pradesh, okay. We have transported them, why? Because we want to reintroduce cheetah in India, because like cheetah was already an extinct species, you know, from India. So that's why we have reintroduced, and that reintroduction program was made a mega program where the Prime Minister of India has also participated, that we are transporting 12 cheetahs. But the thing is, like, they have not talked about, you know, 21,000 children who were malnourished in the same district. Means like there were huge amount of children who are malnourished in the same district. They have just, I mean, like, you know, kept their eyes closed related to this. So this is what, you know, is the allegation of the opposition parties. So the thing is related to this, lot of things, you know, they are talking about. The government is, you know, coming up with one kind of view, opposition is coming up with other kind of view. But the reality is the malnourishment is at its prevalence in Madhya Pradesh. And you might be knowing National Family Health Survey. So NFHS, I mean, like recently NFHS 5 came, right? Right, NFHS 5 came, and this exercise, National Family Health Survey, is an exercise that is being conducted for a long time. Since NFHS 1 till now, the malnourishment is prevalent in Madhya Pradesh, okay. The health status of people is under, you know, grim circumstances, means like it's not at good levels in Madhya Pradesh, okay. And apart from this, there are multiple departments that they have mentioned, okay. So this particular audit report from the Accountant General of Madhya Pradesh says that MP had the worst infant mortality rate, okay. Infant mortality rate means when infants are dying, I mean, let's consider a child takes birth and within a short span of time, right, the child dies, that is known as infant mortality rate. So infant mortality rate is a mathematical number. It talks about out of, let's say, 1,000 kids, how many of them are dying just after birth, okay, that's infant mortality rate. And third worst, maternal mortality ratio. It talks about during pregnancy, during you know, birth, how many women are dying during birth. And maternal mortality ratio is also very high in Madhya Pradesh. Like, in what cases maternal mortality rate is high? When the women, like, you know, who is going through labor, I mean, like who has gone through the pregnancy period, her health is itself is not good. Means like, you know, like women have to be very good, healthy, like while they conceive, while they are, you know, going through the pregnancy stage. But the thing is, like, when their health is not good, so maternal mortality rate increases, okay. So it is directly associated with the malnourishment, because in many cases, like, you know, there are many girl students who are dropouts from school, right. There are many girl students who are dropouts from the school. After they drop out, right, they face difficulty. Most of them gets, you know, married at an early age. When they are married at an early age, right, if they are not healthy enough, then, like, you know, they'll go through pregnancy period and, like, you know, some of them may die, okay. Why? Because they are themselves malnourished, okay. So this is the thing. So this particular audit report talks about that, like, Madhya Pradesh had the worst infant mortality rate, and it had the third worst maternal mortality ratio in 2017 and 19, okay, 17 to 19. So it has talked about multiple figures, like, you know, it talks about National Family Health Survey, okay. So this is the state of health in the state of Madhya Pradesh, okay. So I think the Madhya Pradesh government, you know, should, you know, do more to increase, right, to increase the, like, you know, nourishment status, or to increase, I mean, like, you know, food supplies, to, you know, under the different programs like take home ration, etc., right. So this is all, means like if you read it, right, you will understand, okay. And the thing is, like, there are many adolescent girls like who drop out from schools, and like like they get married, right? They get married when they are poor, and their children like who take birth, they also remain like poor in their life cycle. So that has carry over effects. Okay, it has carry over effects, right? So have we understood the context of the article? Right. So with this, we will take another article for discussion. So in this article, we will talk about addressing the stigma in mental health, says Lancet Commission. Okay, mental health means, like, as we know, like all of us, right, we have some kind of physical ailments in our life, at some stage, right? We may have fever, we may have this thing, that thing. Similarly, mental health is also an important issue, right? There are many people who may be facing, like mental health problems. Mental health problems means like, and these problems, if they are not detected at an early stage, if they are not, if precautionary steps are not taken at an early stage, then like the mental health keeps on gets affected as we age, right? As we grow older, it gets affected. Means like it keeps on increasing. Okay, so there is like it gets aggravated, we would say. Means like the situation gets worsened day by day, right? So it is very important that we should address the mental health related issues, and at the same time we should also not stigmatize. Means like you might have heard about that some of the people who have some mental health, like people are chaining them. Chaining means like unko bandh ke rakhte hai, right, with chain, right? Why? Because people think like they may attack, but the thing is we need to understand their situation, right? It's not always that like they'll be kept chained. So we should understand at what stage of mental problem they are having, right? There should be proper treatment for it. And recently Government of India has also come up with a law. It has come up with the act. It talks about that mental health should be treated at par with physical health. I mean, like mental health should not be stigmatized, and like it has also talked about that insurance companies. There are insurance companies like who are like insuring people for physical health, but like if someone is having any mental issue, they are not giving any kind of health insurance. So that thing should be removed. Okay, so recently it was there that IRDAI, Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India. So like this particular organization have been told by the government that you make sure that all the insurance companies treat physical health and mental health equally. Okay, so this is the thing. Now if we talk about mental health, I mean like so one of the person, I mean like we have an Indian person in this particular body, which is Lancet Commission. So that person, like Thara Rangaswamy, okay, so he was the he or she, I mean like was the Lancet Commissioner and co-founder, okay, of this particular foundation, which is Schizophrenia Research Foundation. So if we talk about schizophrenia, so this is a mental condition. Schizophrenia is a kind of mental condition, means like people like who are mentally, I mean like not in good state, right? So some of them may be having a mental condition which is known as schizophrenia. ठीक है, ये एक टाइप का mental बीमारी का नाम है. This is the name of a kind of mental, I mean like illness, right? So like they have talked about that we should, right, remove stigma from mental health, associated stigma, we should remove it. And like why they discussed it, they discussed during the World Mental Health Day. On Monday, yesterday, it was World Mental Health Day. That day, the Lancet Commission has come up with a report, and in that report they have mentioned that like stigma is associated with mental health and we should take all necessary steps to remove the stigma. And they have done surveys where like people who are having mental health, they have told that like like we are not only affected by mental health, we are affected more by the stigma that is associated. Okay, 90% of those people have complained that stigma like worsens the condition more. So this is all, means like you can read about it, you can understand like what is the importance of mental health, right? Keeping your mental health good is also a very important thing, right? So with this, let us talk about another topic. So in this topic we will understand about Nobel Prize in Economics. Okay, Nobel Prize in Economics is essentially not a Nobel Prize, right? We will discuss about it. Okay, so this particular prize is given by one of the institution. Okay, we will talk about that institution also. This institution recognizes those people who give, you know, outstanding contribution in the field of economics, right? So these are the three people who have been awarded joint Nobel Prize in Economics, means like joint prize. It is equivalent to a Nobel Prize, but not exactly this thing. Okay, so this is the person, his name is Ben Bernanke. Okay, he was awarded Nobel Prize. Along with him there were two other joint winners of the Nobel Prize, and he is Mr. Douglas W. Diamond and Philip H. Dybvig. Okay, these people. And for what purposes they have been awarded Nobel Prize? This purpose is important for us to understand. See, you might be knowing that in 2008, like, you know, that global recession happened. Why it has happened? Because of collapse of Lehman Brothers. Lehman Brothers was an organization, it was a non-banking financial company, NBFC, based in US, and they were, like, you know, giving loans to people without proper documentation, without, you know, proper due diligence. They were giving loans. Those loans are known as subprime. So that is known as subprime crisis. Okay, it was known as subprime crisis, means like not proper due diligence was taken. I mean, like, you know, regulatory frameworks were not taken care of, and they have taken huge amount of loan, and when people defaulted, so that bank collapsed. That collapse of that bank has created ripple effects. It has created ripple effects for many other economies around the world. Okay, it has created ripple effects for many other economies. So the thing is, like, these people have done research on that area, that like what we should do to stop collapse of a bank, right? So they have talked about, they have discussed, like they have, you know, shown that what leads to failure of a bank and what can be done so that banks do not fail, right? They have, one of these person have talked about like what leads to collapse of a bank. Other person talked about, like, you know, when government gives reassurance to people, when government gives, like, for example, like if you come across, right, a news that this particular bank is going to collapse, what you will do? If your account is there in that bank, if you have money in that bank, so you will hurry and go to that bank to withdraw your amount. That's what you will do. If someone, if people get to know that the State Bank of India is going to collapse, right, all people, you know, they will start going to State Bank and they will start taking money from State Bank. So the thing is, it will create a panic situation, right, in the economy, in the Indian economy, because the State Bank of India is one of the largest bank in India, right? It holds some key position in the world, you know, banking system. I mean, like, key position means like it is also having a some decent, you know, like largeness, like it is also a big bank. So the thing is, like, what is to be done to avoid such situation? First of all, we have to understand why the bank is failing, so that, like, we can take proper steps so that the bank is not failing. But if a bank is actually failing, in that case the government can intervene there. Government can give reassurance to people that don't worry, right? We will give you proper interest rate, the bank, like, you know, we will take care of the bank, only then it's going to, like, you know, it's going to stabilize the economy. And that role in India, I mean, like, you know, like we have Reserve Bank of India, which is the central bank. It is the, you know, bank of the banks, right? This Reserve Bank of India is regulating the banking network in India, right? It takes proper steps whenever it feels that this particular bank may collapse, right? Recently you might have heard, like, right, one of the bank, like, you know, license has been withdrawn by Reserve Bank of India. Then it takes prompt corrective actions. PCA, you might have heard about it. It has taken prompt corrective action against multiple banks in the past. Why? So that, like, these banks come under control of the Reserve Bank of India, so that, like, you know, these banks are properly regulated, okay, so that a collapse may be avoided, right? So, like, their research was based on how banks, you know, can be made more stable, simply, okay. So this is the thing. So the first person that you have seen in the picture, right, his name is Mr. Ben Bernanke, okay, he was the US Federal Reserve Chairman. Okay, US Federal Reserve means we have Reserve Bank of India, which is the central bank, like which is the central bank of all banks, for all banks in India. Similarly, for the United States of America, they have different banks, but what is the central bank in United States of America? It is known as Federal Reserve, okay, US Federal Reserve. So this person was the chairman, okay, he was the chairman of the Federal Reserve of the USA. This is equivalent to being the governor of the Reserve Bank of India. You're getting my point? So this person has received the Nobel Prize in economics, okay? He has received this. Along with this, like why he has received? Because he has done extensive research to understand, right, what led to the Great Depression. And he has put his academic expertise on the Great Depression to work reviving the American economy after 2007-8 financial crisis, okay. This particular person has worked after the financial crisis has happened. This person has worked to revive the US economy, okay. So this person was given the Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences along with other two US based economists for their research into the fallout from the bank failures, okay. So they have done this research, right. So like one of these person, he has shown why avoiding a bank collapse is vital. Why it is important to avoid a collapse of a bank, right? So they have shown this particular thing. Apart from this, one of the person has done research and he has shown like how government guarantees on deposits can prevent a spiraling of financial crisis. Spiraling means if financial crisis is happening here, like how we can avoid this effect to affect the other countries, other jurisdictions, etc. So this is related to, this is related to avoiding bank failures, reassurance by the government, and also showing danger of bank runs. Like for example, if a bank is actually collapsing, what can be the dangers associated with it? So these people have done proper research on that thing, and these people have been awarded Nobel Prize in Economics. You might be hearing in news that the Swiss Credit, I think, so that bank is also at the verge of collapse. It's at the verge of collapse, means like it has not collapsed, but there are rumors, there are news about imminent failure of this particular bank. And if Swiss collapses, then it's going to have huge impact around the world, in the world economy, right? Because Swiss, it is much larger, much larger than the Lehman Brothers that was there in 2007-8, right? That has collapsed. It is much larger, okay? Right. So this is the thing. So we have understood this particular thing. I think you have understood in what area the Nobel Prize has been given. And this area is a very important area, very vital area for the, for the world economy where we are, where we are standing now. Means world economy is connected, right? Indian economy is connected with the world economy. So there are spiraling effects, there are spillover effects, right? If some, mishappening happens here, it's going to affect the other countries also in the banking sector or financial sector. So with this, we will talk about another topic. This is the last topic for the day. Very small topic. In this topic, we will understand about the space economy, okay? So it says space economy may touch $13 billion by 2025. So let's understand what do we mean by space economy. So there are multiple companies, like government companies, private companies that are working in the space sector, that are manufacturing satellites, that are manufacturing space vehicles, that are launching different kind of satellites. So they are doing one or other activities related to the space sector. Like one of the organization in India is Indian Space Research Organization. So ISRO is a government backed entity, right? ISRO does research in this area, like space area. Then ISRO has some other bodies also. It has a body which is known as Antrix, right? It has a body, it is a separate body, it's an Antrix. Then we have another body which is known as InSpace, right? These are associated, these are companies that are working in the space sector, right? So one of these bodies is collaborating with foreign players, right? So that like we can do, I mean like, you know, commercial projects with those companies, and other bodies, you know, looking into like participation of the private sector, so that so that private sector also participates in the space activities. If we talk about USA, USA has a like, you know, body which is known as NASA. What is the full form of NASA? National Aeronautics and Space Administration. So NASA is a government entity, means like a government entity in USA which is working in the space sector. Then you might have heard about SpaceX. SpaceX is a private company, right, that has gained prominence in the space sector because like it has done huge amount of research expenditure, and it has showed that it has the capacity of launching space vehicles. It has the capacity of launching satellites, right. Apart from this, if we talk about Russia, Russia has an organization which is known as Roscosmos, right. This is the space agency of Russia. ISRO is a space agency of India. NASA is a space agency of America. Roscosmos is a space agency of Russia. Then we have JAXA. It is the space agency of Japan, right. So if we talk about a space sector, so space sector is a sector which is emerging, which is growing, and like, you know, huge research activities are happening around the world. Government has invested a huge amount of money. Now private players are also participating in the space sector. Now if you talk about future of space sector in India, right, if you talk about future of space sector in India, now here what is happening, it is estimated by these two organizations, EY and the Indian Space Association. EY stands for Ernst and Young, okay, this is, EY is the full form of ERNST and Young. This is a company, this is a multinational company. This is, I mean, a company that is spread over across different countries, okay, it is a private company, okay, multinational company. This is a firm, I mean, that does, I mean, research activities, that does marketing activities, consulting activities and all. This company, along with Indian Space Association, they have come up with an analysis that the space sector in India is going to grow. It's going to grow to the tune of $13 billion by 2025. By the year of 2025, this particular company, like this particular sector will grow, and it's going to grow by $13 billion. So according to the report, the space launch segment would grow at a CAGR. What do we mean by CAGR? CAGR stands for compounded annual growth rate. Okay, this is a kind of ratio in financial analysis of a company, financial analysis of a sector. It talks about with what rate on a year-on-year basis a company, a sector is growing. Okay, so it says that the space launch segment would grow at a CAGR of 13%. CAGR means compounded annual growth rate. Means like if, let's consider this year the space sector has $10 billion, means space sector is working, let's say its total revenue or potential is $10 billion. Next year if it grows by 13%, so it will be 10 point, like that. Okay, so you have to add 13% to it. 13% means 13 by 100. You have to add to it. So that will be the standing of this particular sector next year. Again, if it is growing 13%, so it will keep on growing like that. So these companies have showcased that like the space sector is going to grow at a CAGR, compounded annual growth rate of 13%, spurred by growing private participation, latest technology adoption and low cost of launch services. It is saying there are multiple parameters that are helping, that are supporting in growth of this sector. One of the factor is private participation, means like private organizations are participating in the space sector. There are many startups that are that are coming up in the space sector. Apart from this, companies are adopting latest technology. If one technology is being developed in one country, other countries are adopting the technologies at a faster pace, okay. There is technological transfer, and also low cost of launch services, means like nowadays launching of satellites have become, I mean like easier, it has become cheaper, because like many other countries, for example, India also launches like you know satellites of USA, of Russia, of many other countries, right. Earlier means like now Indian like you know Indian space sector, if we talk about the ISRO is one of the, I mean like you know like forerunners, one of the front runners in the space sector. Like earlier we had you know Roscosmos and NASA, but now India, means like these are the prominent players. India is also at one of the you know prominent places when it comes to space sector, right. So this is the thing, I mean like you know in this article we have understood about the potential of growth of the space sector. Why space sector is growing? Because of private participation, because of technology adoption, and because of low cost launch services. This is the thing, okay. The satellite services and application segment would form the largest share of the space economy, accounting for 36% of the ecosystem by 2023. So this is just for information, so that like you understand that the space sector is a growing sector, okay. It is a sector which is growing, okay. So that's all for today's discussion. So like any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer. No questions? Okay, all right. Thank you so much everyone for attending today's session. So I hope you have a great day ahead. Thank you.